who have been a part of the Young Advocates Institute. And so I want to start off by asking you all some questions. And you can just let me know in the chat if you want to let me know your thoughts, or if you want to unmute yourself. Like, tell me one thing that you appreciate about young people.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Larissa Roan. One thing that I can say I really appreciate about young people is their tenacity, their will to keep moving forward no matter what they're faced with. That's it. Thanks.
With the chat, their curiosity, their willingness to make change, their honesty, their new ideas. Oh, I love the way that they look at the world too. Like it is magical to them. Yeah, yeah. Beautiful. So I'm in the right place with the right people talking about the right things. Uh, thank you. And so for me, like, I'm gonna take it a step further. Y'all know who my favorite people are? 13 to 17-year olds, like they're my people, and people like, whoa, shit, like that's a tough crowd. Tracy. But like, no, those are my people. Like they make me, feel so cool. And then I know I'm getting older because I say I'm cool, and you technically not supposed to say you cool. So it's all those things. And so I've just been really, really fortunate to be able to be an adult ally to this project. And today, our conversation, I really want you all to ask questions. I really want this to be a conversation. That's the way we learn and we grow from each other, because I'm here to share bits and pieces about this project, but I'm also interested to hear about the things and the efforts and any questions that you all want to lift up about the work that you all are doing. And so I think the other thing is, to kind of hold in context, is that there are a lot of things that might look like our project out there, but I think there are not as many things that look like our project, specifically for folks and children from marginalized communities. And so I will say that the way that how we got to where we are today has been a long, winding road. And so I'm going to walk you all through like some of the history, because this year, the Young Advocates Institute celebrates a decade of work, which, when I tell you, is fascinating and amazing that we made it a decade. Is overwhelming and humbling at the same time, thinking about how we started. And so I'm going to share this screen share. Da-da-da. Hold on. There we go. And encourage you all to like ask me questions. That's what I really want you all to do. I really want us to be able to talk, because um if we were in real time together, that's what we would be doing. Oh, Young Advocates Institute, year 10. The Young Advocates Institute. I say that with a lot of a great sentiment, because when I tell you, I think we never should have made it. And so launched in 2012, officially, although the work started for YI in 2011. The Young Advocates Institute is a social justice summer camp that empowers and trains 200 teenagers ages 13 through 17 across North Carolina during a weekend of prevention, intervention, education, advocacy, and leadership development seminars. I hope y'all heard me. So I'm talking about 200 teenagers in a college dorm over a weekend. Can somebody show me some love in the chat about, because every time I tell people 200 people, they're like, are you crazy or you're a godsend? And so I'm talking about 200 teenagers, and I'm talking about all gender expressions are welcome in a college dorm for 3 days. And so it has always been hosted at a local university. We have always centered the whole site as a historically Black college and university. So we spent 3 years at North Carolina Central, and we spent 5 years at North Carolina A&T. And before the pandemic, we were scheduled to move to Fayetteville State, which those are all HBCUs across the state of North Carolina. And so really, the Institute features national speakers, peer-to-peer education, campus tours, and team building. The purpose of the Institute is to give youth a voice and the opportunity to share their experiences regarding social justice issues, regarding sexual violence, and help them become an integral part of those solutions. Not only do young people from across North Carolina represent our state's rich diversity, have access to learning about violence prevention, healthy behaviors, and leaderships, but it's also imperative that they have space to build relationships with their peers and carve out their niche in creating safe communities. And so some of our Institute successes to date. Um, to date, the Institute has trained 1,815 students across 125 course offerings um, of social justice and leadership development themed content. Through the pre and post test, we've increased young people's understanding around sexual assault, human trafficking, and skill set development by 80%. 50% participants in year one actually became published authors in our first book. There's also um, franchises replication that has happened in both Mississippi and Arizona. They both look different. The Young Advocates Institute South in Jackson, Mississippi looks like a day camp. So it doesn't have the liability that comes along with an overnight residential option. So students report from 8 until 5, then they will come home and they do that for a week. And then in Arizona, Young Advocates Institute Southwest is more of a day long option that is explicitly facilitated by youth facilitators. And we can definitely, you all can ask me as many questions about that as we move through this. And I'm going to encourage you all to keep asking questions because unfortunately for you all and everybody else, when I have this conversation, so much of the historical context isn't in a centralized pace. It's all right here in my head, which is not a good place for it to be. And we're working on extracting that so that folks can really, understand how all of this came to be. Um, Students have created their own assessments and focus groups and went out into the field, being their schools and their communities, to gather information to come back. And the information from that data has been made up the content of the Institute. We have been really, really blessed to be able to have funding from state funding. For us in North Carolina, our FIPSA office also has a leadership arm. And so we are able to get FIPSA funding by that prevention leadership arm. We got invited to the White House State of Women Summit. I think that was 2015. And we have been able to really think about money differently for the Institute because we've gotten financial commitments, about $40,000 from Auto Trader. And in 2018, we got a $100,000 investment from the NFL.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah, that's new money. That's good.
Yeah.
That's the bag you really want, right? That's the bag you like. That's the money that don't have a report with it. Like,
Right.
do good. Like, and here's the thing: the NFL actually just sent a check. They literally sent a check that was for $100,000 in the mail, and I was
Wow.
like, who would do something like that?
Oh,
For
wow.
me, I actually still have the tracking sheet because I was like, this is amazing. And here's the reason why that's important in the story of YI. When YI actually, I will say, actually the concept started in 2006. So in 2006, I wrote for this small pot of money and it was $5,000. I can't remember who it came from, but it was the people who bring you Smokey the Bear.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
That's all I can remember about it.
Mm.
Right. So we got $5,000, and they put together this training. When you got the $5,000, you had to find two young people to go up and learn about, you know, youth engagement and involvement, and how to engage young people in shifting conversations around prevention. And it was broad-based prevention. It wasn't necessarily sexual violence, but just prevention of behaviors, unhealthy drugs, substance abuse. But of course, with our kids coming from the statewide coalition, we were like, yeah, we're going to talk about prevention of sexual violence. And we came back to North Carolina with our little $5,000. And the kids came back and said, we want this one day activity where we're going to just invite young people to have three conversations. And so in 2006, we held this conference, this one day thing called I Am USA. And it stood for I Am Understanding Sexual Assault. And we invited, in North Carolina, mental health has, really gone through a really, really rough patch. It has been outsourced to private entities who can essentially anybody in. There was a time in North Carolina, if you had a pulse and um an email address, you could essentially start a child mental health agency and bill Medicaid for it. And a lot of fraud and abuse, and a lot of people didn't get the services that they really needed. And so you got to pay attention to that along with the creation story of YI, because all of those things started to happen at the same time. So we opened ourselves. We thought we was going to have 25 people show up for this one day thing. We end up showing, it ends up being 75 to 100 people showing up. And so they show up. We have a conversation on sexual assault, dating violence, and gangs. We had a talent show. We fed everybody. And it was at that point we knew that we were on to something. And so Texas also, the Texas Coalition also used to have something like our YI. So I got a chance to go there, check out how they were running things. They actually had like prevention sites all over the state of Texas, and they would have these massive summer camps where young people would come together on varied campuses, much to the structure like YI. And so I will say that the story about YI is so rich and so complex. So I come back to North Carolina, I'm like, I want to do that. I also was in a very different place in my like career and leadership capacity. And so my boss, who is one of my by far my best friend. We've been friends for a long time. Um was like, hell no, like no, like no. And she was like, you got to think about this, you got to think about this, because for me she really wanted me to make sure that I knew my why, and bringing something that again comes, that one is expensive. The reason why I talk about money so much and why it is expensive to take care of young people in a space for 4 days in every need. So we're talking about making sure that we never wanted money to be a barrier. So our cost of registration was more along the line of a commitment fee. But the things that we provided for our students and continue to provide for our students, every kid, we pay for every single meal. We pay for the super, super nice dorms on a college campus where there are shared bathrooms. We can't do like shared bathrooms, really, really plush, not the dormitories that I went to college in, right? Super nice stuff. So we pay the extra money for those things. We actually pay for sheets and towels because we don't make the assumption that people can go out and buy sheets and towels for a summer camp. So basically, when you come to YI and when you come to YI, the only thing you technically need to bring is yourself. We provide t-shirts for everything. I've always had a massive amount of toothbrush, toiletries, anything you can possibly imagine for a young person. Um, because those are all the things that we provide: food trucks every single meal. That's why the 200 number is insane, and people still ask me where did I get the number 200 from. I have the slightest idea. 10 years later I still don't know. But it's one of those things, and I think that, when you think about how we were structured, that what was going on in North Carolina with mental health, our focus really was high risk populations. Now, we wouldn't call them, I wouldn't use that language to call them high risk. We really reframed how we talked about the young people we were serving. So we call them high promise. And so, how that showed up in the Institute, I will say years 1 through 3, about 80% of our kids were already embedded in some system. And so I'm talking about juvenile delinquency, gang intervention, substance abuse, child mental health agencies, group homes. And so our demographic, they had already experienced some form of, or seen, or been victimized in some regard. And I will say that initially, again, back to the money, I wrote for a little bit over $250,000 to get YA off the ground. And nobody made any commitment to that. I got no's all the way around. Like, call me back when you gonna work with, you know what I'm saying? Like some different kids. Like, that's really who you want to work? Nah, let me know how that goes for you, right? And we didn't get any money at all. And to run a project like YI is expensive, right? It is an investment, because you literally have to think about everything that a kid needs. And sort through ways to be able to provide that money, that provide the space for them. Let me see. Any questions? I'm gonna go back to the chat. Yeah, high promise. Yeah, high promise. Absolutely. Yeah, you got to. We have to reframe how we talk about young people. Yeah, yeah. It is insane. Thank you, Carla, for reminding me. It is that. Cool beans. And so, one of the things that I will say is extremely valuable when I think about YI is I was able to, you gotta get young people involved. So we have the 18. They have been the 13, they have been the 15. And I will say I started advisory council late. Like, and for me, going for any of my guidance, if people are talking about how to work with young people, you have to make sure that they are a part of every single process. Because I will say, I can tell a beautiful story about YI. I love YI. But my accountability, right, is that the first year it was an adult as conference for kids. And I heard loud and clear, like, so when you talk about working with young people, you got to stand in accountability, because one thing they gonna do is they gonna tell you the truth, whether you ask for it or not. And I appreciate that. Like, I didn't know how much I needed that in my life, but I did. And so we started the advisory council. So we have advisory council. They make a commitment to spend a year with me in conversations. So everything we talk about for here makes its way actually into the Institute. And then once we've talked about all the things that have emerged and what comes to the top, then they manage all the logistics. And let me tell you something about, like, letting logistics go to teenagers. Give them what they need and trust them. I don't like talkies, but they do. And they know that their peers need talkies. I wish that they would let me prepare the menu for YI, as opposed to, I didn't know they could eat their body weight in like chicken. I was like, you just, hey, I don't have kids. So parents, I appreciate y'all so much more. I hug parents. I hug my mama a little bit more. Like, I shake parents' hands like a little bit more. I had no concept of that at all. But yet I want to hang out with 200 teenagers in a college dorm, right? Yeah, cereal. I was like, that's not a meal. You need oh no, it works for them. Did not know that. And so the advisory council has been really vital, and they shape all of the pieces of the Institute. Um, And I think this is really for us, right? As folks who are thinking about how to really work with young people, where the things that, and these are things I lived in. I just told you I led in Rome one, youth led activities in which you do as directed without understanding. Yep, did that. Decoration. Yep, it's beautiful to have young people a part of a work. Oh, tokenism, all of those assigned but not informed, consulted and not informed, like adult initiated shared decisions with youth, like youth initiated and directed, and youth initiated shared decisions with adults. And that's really, that's really, I really am conscious of that with working with them, especially these days, because there are a lot of things that I think that we should be doing. Like, here's what I think we should do. Here's what I think we should do. And before I do that, I have to sit in accountability, because one thing I have taught, and we've kind of operated in this advisory council, and we try to operate in it in when we're actually in a physical YI, is this practice of love with accountability, right? I love you and I'm going to hold you accountable. And love, to hold somebody accountable, is actually the greatest form of love, right? And so really unpacking that in a way, and I'm able to have those kind of conversations with young people on my advisory council. I didn't start that way, but I will say it took work, and it took to be able to build trust, to understand young people in that way, in that regard. And so I have ideas, and they're like, Miss Tracy, we love you, and our accountability to you is nobody asked for that. And here's the thing, they're absolutely right. Right? I am not in the business, or don't want to be in the business in any regard, for any of the work that I'm able to do, um that creating something that nobody asked for. Oh, do I have, so in the questions I say, do I have a story of the youth making a decision that ended up being a good learning experience? Um, yes. So trusting them on the conversations that they want to have, even if they make me uncomfortable. And they're like, no, Miss Tracy, no, perfect example. Here's a good one. They wanted to have restorative justice circles conversations before we went, exactly, because we did it, right? We did it with them. And here's the thing, I thought they hated it, because they're teenagers. I forget that, no matter how much I love them. So we're doing circle practice, and circle practice, blah blah, like we're talking about circle practice, and they are, I think they hate it. The next time we meet, oh, we think everybody should do that. And I'm like, but that's a lot, right? Do we have the capacity to do it? Can we think about it? We have to find these facilitators. And they said, no, I think we should do it. We couldn't find the facilitators. And then we had an experience that happened at YI, where they were like, told you, should have had them damn accountability, restorative justice circles. And they remembered that. And it was like, we hear you in understanding that. But for us, it really was about finding enough facilitators to manage 200 young people in smaller groups, to do group activities. And for me, they were right, and they said it wasn't a no, like no, you're wrong. It was no, because we just didn't have the bandwidth to find. We didn't have enough facilitators to hold that kind of space. Um, but they were absolutely right, and they could. So something happened at YI that required accountability from all 200 kids, and we didn't get it. And they said, "Here's why we didn't get it, because we didn't ground everybody in accountability on what YI is." Mhm. Does that answer your question, Sonny?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Tracy.
Yep. You gotta trust them. It's hard. Don't
Yeah, I
get me,
know.
don't like, but it is, but it
Right.
is, and it's worth it in the long in the scope of work. Yep. And I'm sure I got others because oh my God, it is something. I made a decision on something, and I had to apologize. I don't have a problem apologizing to young people, and some adults will be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" Like, no, I don't have a problem with that. And when I make a misstep on a decision that I make, I am like, "I'm sorry," and that is why we can have conversations when they're like, "We didn't ask for that." That's why they can trust me, and we've established trust. And there have been some decisions that I'm like, "Hey." Every year I come to them with one thing that I'm going to ask them to follow me on. One thing. And we agree upon it. It's one thing. And one year I'm like, trust me on this. They hated it. They did not want to do it. Do you know what it was? It was trap yoga. So it was rap music set to yoga. And they were like, don't nobody want to do that. Ain't nobody gonna want to do that. Blah, blah, blah. I was like, just trust me. Here's my one ask. And so it was my one ask. And it worked. And they loved it. Like all their peers loved it. They hated it, but their peers loved it, which meant they eventually came around. And they were like, how did you know it was going to work? I didn't. But I asked you to trust me just like I trust you.
That's great. That's
And
great.
now trap yoga is a standard. So like some of those things, they're like, oh man, this the one thing you gonna ask for that requires us to do the yoga. Yep, it's my one thing. But at the end of the day, they and I was like, I didn't know it was going to work, but I asked you to trust me. Yep. And so, yep, adults are humans too. And I just try to be really, conscious of that. And so every year, they haven't done it yet, but they come up with a YI Bill of Rights. And so everybody has to come up with a Bill of Rights. And this Bill of Rights is really, really helpful and useful in preparing for when we were in physical, like going on a college campus. All kids got this information, parents got this. And you can see all of these things are their words, not mine. No negative vibes. That's really, really important. So all of love with accountability, be productive, have fun. And so, this is their Bill of Rights, and every year the Bill of Rights is updated and edited for how they want to move into the next YI, and all of them sign the document, and then it is included in everything about that we publicize for YI. Wakanda. How dare I'd be remiss not to say. So everything we've ever done at the Institute has been through a hip hop and pop culture framework. So we're not using any of our language in any of our agendas. So we take our social cues from everything that is on every piece of social media. Um, you will every workshop title is a hashtag. We encourage young people to use social media while they're at YI. I don't manage social media. Our advisory council and interns manage social media. We have taken our cues from everything. So we have had conversations on, oh God, we had a whole Netflix and chill, relationship goals, chilling with Bay. The Migos have always greatly influenced our work. The Migos say they are from North Georgia, and they spell North NAWF. Our advisory council has come back with a T-shirt logo and brand that says that we are North, and North in YI words means that we are never acting with fear. You can see this is the 2020 t-shirt. So we love the Migos here. And J. Cole has been a staple on every single YI agenda because he is from North Carolina. We have invited him and to every he has literally had been a focal piece in every single YI. So much so that we have had J. Cole slaw. Like for real, our kids love J. Cole. Like we have like everything. We had a KOD plenary that talks about like we have like anything connected to pop culture. We have it has been a part of YI. Like and it's kid stuff. Not I wish I was that cool. I can't take um credit for that. And you're looking at just another op. So when I was like, hey, Black Panther was the thing, I think I had YAI Conda. And it was like, nobody's ever gonna say that, Miss Tracy. That's lame. And it was like, we woke. I was like, oh, okay. So we going to woke Conda. So we had one whole year. Everything that was available at YI was through this lens of woke Conda. Um, and so the way that students move, and then you can see this is a picture right here of our classic YI t-shirt. Like that is legendary. And so the way that students move through the institute is in small groups of 25 to 30 according to age. And then we usually end up between 7 to 8 of those groups, 25 to 30. And surrounded by each group is 5 to 7 college age students who we also bring in to be camp counselors. And so I will say that young people are, the focus of everything that we do at YI. But for me, the people who really work and know, even in my lived experience, know more about the young people that we serve has got to be the camp counselors. And that's solely because they're all close in age, right? So we're talking about second year college students, 13 to 17, and they're able to connect in a very different way. And so we end up with 7 groups. And so in the year of Wakanda, they had tribal colors, and then each tribe also had tribe contributions. And then everybody's verbatim at Wakanda was their youth, like that was their gift. And so this is oh God, who is this? This is the tribe of T'Challa. And you can see that tribal contributions are humility, kindness, and leadership. And so we have evolved with this grouping of young people through all of YI. So one year we were Wakanda, one year we were all um, leaders, Black and brown marginalized leaders, past, present, future. So that year we had a James Baldwin group. We had Audre Lorde, Maxine Ward, a Sojourner Truth. Again, we were on the campus of North Carolina A&T. In North Carolina A&T, 4 of their students started the Greensboro lunch counter protest. And so we had a protest, the North Carolina A&T 4 were a part of that. And so when we're doing that, when we were naming those groups that way, you also got an in-service about who these people were, because some of them you do know about, some of them you don't know about. And so you can see like this is how Wakanda kind of took place. And this was also the year that we were able to actually take our young people on a field trip to the Greensboro Civil Rights Museum. And so I say all that. So these are the things in which how we've approached every single thing with the Institute. It's always been youth led, youth driven. And, parents understand us in a way because they're like, what is this? And I'm like, it's not for you, it's for them. So it's not for us to be like, oh, it shouldn't be this way. Oh, it shouldn't have that. And so those are things that are really important to us. And so this is, I would say, one of the most critical times in which we were able to actually, even being the Sexual Assault Coalition, really move the needle on young people understanding sexual violence was when we brought in Safe Bay. Safe Bay is an organization, youth-led organization that does a lot of sexual violence prevention work, led by youth survivors. And so this was in the year of Wakanda was also the year that we bought in Safe Bay. And some of you may know Daisy from the documentary on Netflix. And so she recently passed away. But I will say that the way that young people talked about understanding her story and her co-facilitator story. I don't care how many times we've tried to jazz up this conversation around sexual violence, they got it. And I just and in the conversation about why I just have never seen the needle move. And when these young people came and told about their survivorship, it shifted our institute in a way that really put us on target to really have these deep conversations with young people around sexual violence because they heard survivor stories from their peers.
Tracy, I have a question.
Mhm.
Is it only girls or are boys in? Is it just girls?
No, it is not just girls. Um, it is open. So the makeup, how it ends up shaking out every year. Of course, you're going to end up with more girls than boys. So we end up out of the 200, we end up with probably 150 girls and 50 boys.
Thanks. And do you how um, do you do the LGBTQ? Like, are you addressing that
Absolutely,
trans children
absolutely,
that come in and?
absolutely. Absolutely. And so it is gender fluid and open to all who want to participate. Absolutely. And we make those housing accommodations based on identity. And for a little bit, we didn't, coming over to take over a college campus is a lot. And because we're coming in the summertime, and we're asking for a lot of things. Like we're at like so for us, I would say the first couple of years, no, we've only had one year where we were in separate dormitories. Because historically we would put all how do we do it? Boys on all bottom floors and girls on all top floors. It wasn't until 2019 that we were able to actually have two separate dorms, which that's a lot, right? Because it was just a lot. Like, if you all ever want to have like a virtual happy hour with me so I can tell you about some of the stuff that young people have done in dormitories, we could totally do that. But you don't even have to have a conversation with me. You can think about who you were when you were 13 and 17-year-old.
Oh,
And
I
here's
hear
the
you.
like, so like, yeah. And the thing about it is, and I'm like, for me as an adult, kids, my advisory council did finally come back and say, like, yeah, you lame for that. I'm like, yeah, you're right. But so we would have these massive, like, soon as our day was over, we would start walking the floor. All the adults, we just making sure ain't nobody sneaking out. And then we was like, oh, it's quiet. And I'm like, this is weird. Hell, they ass in there taking naps, right? To wake up because eventually we're gonna fall apart. Hell, we don't work all day. Like we have set up all this stuff all day long. Oh, yes. Like Larissa, we would be like, yes, we going to bed at 1. Hell, that would be what time the party would start. And I love them so much. Oh my God, my favorite story. I do have to share this in a moment of like complete transparency. And so, like, you gotta be really, really conscious of like young people and their strategies. So, we had this group of kids. They were going to have a party, and so they decided to airdrop all anybody nearby with all the information about this party. They had been cuffing snacks all day long, like over the whole weekend. It was like, oh yeah, we got all the snacks, all the stuff you saw. Like it was a whole invitation. I saw the invitation because my phone had the capability to see the invitation. And so they was like, RSP, you got to text back to RSP at this number. So I'm texting back and they stopped and they was like, no, Miss Tracy, they know they think somebody else got it. I'm like, it wasn't me. I didn't text. Did I text back? I can't remember. But it was like they were coming in, and I'm like, all right, everybody have a good night. I know you're supposed to have a party in room 102, but that's been canceled. So sorry. And then the kid, like, it was just weird because all the kids were like, oh, hell no. Like, how did she know? Like, we was all planning to go to this party, but it's young people. So again, think about all the things that you might have done. Oh, they have jumped out of windows. They have recorded inappropriate stuff on Snapchat, and I follow them on Snapchat. And you're like, I can see this, right? I see you running up and down the hallway. You know that, right? But it's young people. It's those things. It's bound to happen. And so, yes, that is young people. And I will say one of the best decisions that I have made with the Institute so far really was hiring Sir Bruce Davis III. And so, we brought Bruce in as an evaluator. He is, at the time, he was a 15-year-old Black boy, young man who is really, really gifted and super, super smart. And so we brought him on, and he learned from our prevention coordinator and evaluator, like the art of evaluation. I don't know anything about evaluation. It's not my thing. It took me a long time to realize that YI was prevention, right? Like, it's not my gift. It's not my skill set. But he got it. And so he came in and used the arts as his way of capturing what we were learning at YI as an evaluator. And so this is his stuff. All of this is his original artwork. We corrected the history around Rosa Parks. This is an original piece of Rosa Parks. And so we wanted to tell the truth about Rosa Parks being a sexual violence advocate long before bus boycotts. And so he drew these pieces and put prompts on them, and everything that was collected was a part of the evaluation and what we learned and what young people learned from this particular workshop. We did one about Renaissance and the use of arts. This is his interpretation of Louis Armstrong. And of course, that too also had prompts on it and collected, those things. And these were our evaluation tools. School days, I like this one a lot because this was really a conversation about the school of prison pipeline. And Bruce was really intentional about how he drew this, where, it can be a school or it could be a prison. And of course, again, had prompts around the content, and those are the things. And these were actually our evaluation tools. Questions about any of that? Or any of this?
So I don't have a question. I have a shared story because I have a group of girls that we host a retreat. Again, this is Larissa, and I'm the founder of Journey to Free, and we host an annual retreat for young girls that have been sexually abused in Jamaica, right? And a couple of years, I was in for a rude awakening, getting the girls on the campus because we use a hotel to host these girls. And the very first year, we've only been doing this for 4 years, going on 4 years now, and had to postpone last year because of COVID. But the very first year, I was in for a total surprise, forgetting that, these are young girls ranging from 10 through 17. And the things that were happening when the liaisons and all the facilitators and everyone went to bed, even though we took turns and had shifts going on watching these girls, there were the balconies on the outsides of the rooms. The girls were sending messages to their boyfriends and all of that, and trying to sneak boys, even though they were sharing rooms. There were 4 girls to a room. They were still, in secrecy discussing how they can get their friends and their boyfriends to come in, because of course it's a hotel. Majority of these girls are from very poor backgrounds and they've never been in a hotel before. But little did they know that, of course, the hotel was covered with cameras everywhere. So imagine we're in our rooms and we're getting called from the owner and saying, hey, do you know about this? There are boys on the campus. And I'm like, what? So yes, we had episodes of that. We also had girls fighting, and it was just a crazy mess. But yes, you live, you learn. And so moving forward in the years after that, we were able to better equip and be prepared for what could happen. But I could honestly speak to all of that. It's just a reminder that when you're working with young people and teens, there's so much that you have to deal with.
Absolutely. And here's the thing for us. Thank you so much for sharing that. Like, I know all that campus police, everybody, like, all of it. I think the thing about it is for us, we really, we didn't, we're a coalition. We're not camp people. And I think we made a lot of mistakes early on. And so, guys, our original application and registration for this thing started off with 5 pages. Before we moved to online virtual registration, we were up to 17 pages. And the reason why is because we had to know everything about every kid with multiple points of contacts, really to again reduce that liability piece, right? And so, like, yeah, our organization would buy an additional $1 million policy, right? Because we're talking about young people running around on a college campus, right? And so, and I think I would be remiss not to in this conversation with you all, like, one of the things that really shifted YI for me, year one. Can you imagine year one? We got 200 kids, right? And I think the thing about it is also in my also transparency is I do my work every day as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. And with the initial work around YI, it really was a selfish endeavor, right? It was, I want to make sure, want to make sure that young people have access to understanding that what happened to them was not their fault, right? I wanted to make sure they had access to resources that I didn't have. I'm a poor kid from Bossier City, Louisiana. Um, and so I wanted to make sure the moment a kid came on campus, it has never been about me ever again. And in year one, we had this young person show up, and she was in foster care, and we were in the city where she grew up, right? And you got to understand, when we were first starting off, kids did not want to come to the Young Advocates Institute because they didn't know what the hell it was. So most of them were there, because a parent saw something, and wanted them to come and have this conversation. And so kid shows up, um, and then said kid runs away, right? So I lost all, like, just like, oh my God, year one. Like, yo, what? And here's the thing. We're here and I think about all of this all the time, all the day, because here's the thing. That kid ran away. We did everything that we knew we were supposed to do. So we called foster care parents, and they say, "Oh, we're discontinuing services for her right now. If she comes back, don't call us." What the hell? We call case manager. Oh, she'll be fine. She runs away all the time. What? We call biological mom. Biological mom is in a homeless shelter with her other children. It was like, I can't really do this right now. So we're literally hosting this space, right? And a kid in real time is slipping through the cracks, right? And nobody, and I do mean nobody, showed up on that kid's behalf. And that is something that I will say that really shifted my DNA just as a human being, as an advocate, as somebody in the work, as an ally to young people. It really just changed me in a different way. And I was very clear that if I could make it out of the next 48 hours that I had at YI, I didn't ever have to do that ever again. So I was very clear about it. We didn't have the money to pay for it. And now we a kid is no, but yeah, like so it's that. And we ended up making it out of that YI. Young lady was found, was reunited with her biological mom. But I was still very clear I wasn't going to do it again until we ended up getting a call and somebody was like, "Hey, you gonna do that thing again?" Hell no. No, for real. You gonna do that thing again? I said, hell no. And they were like, "No, I think you should because you had a kid who was there who was last time you did it, he was there and he had attempted suicide. He was in a group home. He came to your camp. He went, he got a GED, and now he in college. That is the only reason why we are having this conversation because my heart was at peace. I was fine with never ever doing the Young Advocates Institute ever again. And so we built from that and have continued to make mistakes, still make mistakes, still figure out how to thrive, how to move forward. We've made a lot of mistakes in YI. But we're still here because we learn, for me, I've always told the kids, like, let's make the right mistakes. And they're like, what are the right mistakes? The right mistakes is any mistake you can learn from. And so that's what we've been committed to doing, right? And we've tried to figure it out. I would say social media is important and it's levels to social media. And, I say that tongue in cheek, really, for parents to trust us, you got to go on Facebook and you got to turn over the other stuff to young people, right? The great migration had happened in the midst of how the 10 years of the Young Advocates Institute. um young people left, um Facebook many moons ago when their grandparents showed up, so they're not there. Just want y'all to know, just in case y'all didn't know the migration happened. They're on other stuff that you may not have ever heard of before. Build the evaluation piece. 200 is still an insane number. Build a community investment piece. The task force, liability, stay firm on everything. How do you, I see I have a question. How do you navigate, how you make space for young people navigating trauma being triggered while at the Institute? Oh yes. The beauty, what we've been able to do is have really good working relationships with the counseling center on those campuses that we've been at. So we have worked with them. They make a commitment. We're partners when we come to when we have YI with those counseling centers. And we also partner with our local rape crisis center that might be in that community. And so like we have a lot of flexibility. It's how we train young people. You're absolutely right. Those triggers do happen. And for me, in my lived experience, they always happen. For me, in my lived experience of training, I also do a lot of training on college campuses from a pop culture, hip hop framework, and spending a whole lot of time with young people is when we clearly define what sexual violence is. That is, for me, I have seen young people like, I knew that shit was wrong. Oh my God, it's a crime. Yep, that's what happened to me. And you can see it happening in real time with them, because you've given voice or clarity to understand to a crime and a violation. And you're absolutely right. Those are the triggers. It's that's when they are triggered. So, really cautious of that, in a really meaningful way. We shorten workshops to make sure that they are a little bit shorter than classroom time. We give a lot of flexibility on breaks and wellness. We encourage it in multiple ways. Exercise, like all those things are available because we do have to help folks like navigate like all those things. Hmm. Any other questions? I'm going to move past this and so we can talk about some of these pieces, but I do so we can have a little bit more time to talk at the end before our time is up. This is YI 2020. Like, of course, you all, just like all things, I was talking to Elise before you all joined us. We've been in, this space for a year. And so we had to make a lot of different adjustments. And so what we ended up doing in 2020 was making it 100% virtual, which was very different, which also meant that it was much smaller. But it also gave us an opportunity to record some of those sessions, so that we could share them and they could live on, Insight's YouTube page. So a different range of young people, young person could be able to access it. And we spread it out. So we ended up having 33 sessions over the course of 4 weeks. And so you had a core, the way that was kind of broken down, you had a core learning around sexual violence. We talked a lot about language. We had a workshop, a virtual space called The Code, which talked about pieces of language that you needed to know. We had a really hard yet beautiful conversation called 8 minutes and 46 seconds, where we did a lot of reflection on 8 minutes and 46 seconds and how George Floyd's life impacted the world. And so it was that. And then after that, you got a chance to move into 2 tracks. We opened up tracks this year. So we had a Tokyo-ish media track and we had a social justice rap lab track. And so in the Tokyo-ish, you learned about the art of telling your story. And in the rap lab track, you got a chance to actually record songs about your lived experience. And then we came back with a leadership track where everybody went to, where we talked about organizing, preparing for college, um, entrepreneurship. And of course, we were still able to, in some regard, be able to house and hold our talent show, because the talent show is a staple at the Institute. So young people were able to have their summer showcase. Again, here is some of the amazing artwork from Sir Bruce, who also came back this year. This is his interpretation of 8 minutes and 46 seconds. I After this, I'll send you all the links and information where you can go check out. We ended up doing 33 sessions, but we ended up only posting and cleaning up and making available 6 of those sections, but those things are also available and folks can check them out. I love this piece. This was Bruce's contribution to the summer showcase. We also did a lot of care packages this year, right? We sent out about 200 care packages. Whether you showed up or you participated at the Institute, you got these things. So you can see we have our NOF t-shirt. You can see we have YI flip-flops. You can see that YI Fist Institute. All these things were also produced by Bruce as well, too. You got masks, you got a customized mask, hand sanitizer, water bottles, um, antibacterial wipes, chapstick, journals, pens, and there's also what else? Headphone, earbuds are there too. So we put all these things in a box, sent it to kids to make sure they had everything they needed for those who were participating in the Institute. This was a really cool surprise that we ended up getting. We have our first produced mixtape, which I think is freaking hilarious. It's called Right the World. And so this is the product of from the Social Justice Rap Lab. And I have a co-curator. His name is Dasan Ahanu. He is an artist, a professor, Nasir Jones, Harvard scholar, and he teaches a rap lab class at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And so he came in and led that rap lab track where he teaches young people the art of music, the history of music. And they ended up producing this amazing piece. I think it's 7 or 8. It's 7 or 8 songs. And the interesting cool thing about this was an all girls poets mixtape. And I thought it was so cool because I made an interlude and I know I was on an interlude. So I called my mom, I was like, I made it. I'm on a mixtape. Who knew? That's like, I didn't know it was a dream or hope. But, and it's all about, like, of course, um, all the lyrics, all the songs, all the interludes, all those things are extremely positive, but it's all young Black and brown girls. And year 10, we just literally finished wrapping up shooting a documentary about the Young Advocates Institute and its 10 years of work. I am really excited about it. So we'll have a documentary out sometime, hopefully over the summer, to celebrate 10 years. We're going to come back with facilitator's guide. Kids are going back into the studio to make a soundtrack about what YI has meant to them for the past 10 years. Um, and so I'm excited about that, overwhelmed by that. That's how we're moving into 10. And, a couple of things that, I know just by being fortunate to work on YI is, again, you can build community in 72 hours. 200 is still an insane number. Young people will need us in a way, I think, after the pandemics, right? Because I think we need to talk about the multiple pandemics. We need to talk about COVID. We need to talk about economic pandemics. We need to talk about 400 years of a pre-existing condition of racism and oppression in this country. And so I think we're really going to we don't even know the trauma that is on the other side of this, right? I'm not even saying going back to normal, but I'm talking about on the other side of this. Intergenerational work is important and vital. Communication has to be broken down. Everybody is grieving. We're all in active trauma, I would say. Young people are pissed, like they really mad at us. I don't know if you had a conversation with them, any of them as of late, but they are, because they want things to change and they deserve for things to change as well too. Stable programming for young people can't, what was my last thought? Can't exist without accountability and vulnerability. Like, I don't know everything, and I've got to be accountable for my actions, for what I think, and for what I say. Art really has to be inclusive in all facets of any programming with young people. I don't, the art of, you all saw how we have used art as evaluation, but, political freedom and social justice, like, there's an art to being able to write and tell your story. There's art, there's healing in being able to understand the impact of dance and just how the arts can be revolutionary. I think we also need to be very, very conscious about, like, what young people are going to need, especially when we think about some of our coalition and local program, like traditional prevention spaces. I don't think everybody's going back to school in the traditional offering. We need to acknowledge that school hasn't been safe for a lot of kids for a long time. And we have to understand that so there are some young people who are thriving in a unique way because they are not in that building. And so we have to think about recreative ways and follow the truth on how we create emotional well-being and spaciousness. I believe social enterprise has to be a consideration for all organizations. It's my personal belief. My hope, if I had the money, which you all should know that I'm trying to figure it out, I just got to figure out the right way. I probably need like maybe 10 more sleep cycles and I'll figure it out. But I really think young people need jobs. If I had my way, I would give young people jobs. I would pay them $15 an hour and I would give them the option for therapy. To like, because I think those things change lives and young people need that. Like, we just got invited to we got considered and funded for about $25,000 more in COVID cares money from our FIPS administrator. And they're like, what are you thinking about doing? I was like, from what I hear and what I know about, I'm going to, of course, I'm not making the decision about what we're going to do until I talk to, advisory council, because they make those decisions. But what I have heard from them is like they really want access to therapy because the last year has been hard. And in my initial conversations, I'm like, what do they need? And folks are like, I need them to be um representative of who I am. Oh, I need them to be black or brown. I need them to be black or brown. And so I'm thinking about like how can we put together a network and allow young people just to have the spaciousness to be able to connect to a therapist or a counselor just to talk about it. I will say we did offer that in a group setting at our virtual gathering this summer, and young people really loved it. Like, and it was really more about like practical tools on how to like make sure you have water, like try to write your thoughts down, try to get a good sleep cycle, because I mean he was speaking to them at that time where their sleep cycles were off. Like they had been out of school, it was nowhere to go, everybody's up until 5 o'clock in the morning and then don't wake up to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then like, it's like helping them to think about those things. And so those, and I think we have to be really conscious. Young people really are the people who are carrying all the pandemics and everything that's under all of the pandemics. And so they're going to need a level of care and consideration that, as creative as I think I am, I have the slightest idea on what that is, but I am listening and I am considering. And I also have to be um, able to be in a space to be stretched by what they're going to need and what they need and how to make sure they get it. That's really where I've sat for a long period of time. So I'm going to stop share and really open up the space for you all to ask me any questions about any of this, things that I reference or pay attention to, or any of this.
Tracy, I don't know if you saw, there's a question from earlier. It says, what advice would you give to someone who aspires to show up and create an organization that serves our community?
Ooh. What advice would I give to someone who aspires to show up and create an organization that serves our community? My first rule of thought would be to listen. Like to sit and to listen, to ask the questions, to ask people how they feel, what they need, and trust what they need. Right. I think it's those keen advocacy skills that we use every day. I think sometimes we got to lean into them for all facets of our life. Like you got to understand what young people need. And sometimes in my lived experience, young people have never asked me for anything that wasn't what they should be given anyway. Point and tell, I'm like, a kid I work with, he was like, I need something from you. Oh, what do you want? What do you need? Tell me what it is. I need you to believe in me. And I'm like, what? Yeah, of course I do. He was like, no. I want to go to, my parents are pushing me to go to college, but I don't think I should go there, but I'm going to go. And I'm certain that's going to disappoint them. And they don't believe I can do a good job. I don't believe I can do a good job. Can you believe in me to help me through this point? And are you going to believe in me when I make a mistake? Hell yeah, I'm a believe, like, absolutely. And so I think in creating something like this, you really have to listen. And I would also say, pay attention to where the gaps are. Like there's a lot of stuff again out there that people are trying to do. But I would listen to the voices of young people. That's what I would really do. And I think one mistake that I feel like, especially with young people, we really have to think about who we are interfacing with. Like I said, in the beginning, 70% of my kids, 80% of my kids were already embedded in some system. Now that looks a little bit different. Right now, I have about a 50-50 split where 50% of my kids are on target, supports from home, high school completion, a different social economic thought process and privilege. And then I had some really poor kids. So I've had kids who have literally came to YI with no luggage in a trash bag. And I also have kids who've shown up with Louis Vuitton luggage, right? I've had both of those. And here's what I've learned. Hell, they both need the same things. We make a distinction on, oh, well, rich kids have accesses, they have this and they have that. And then you have poor kids, they don't have this and they don't have that. No, they actually need each other. Because what I did see a lot of this year was a lot of, there were, in some instances, in my lived experience, not everybody else's, you see a lot of privileged kids advocating for these injustices that they have, none of that has ever happened to them before, right? But they're speaking on behalf of the injustice without asking their peers who do have that lived experience what they need. And I want to be really cautious about that, not to do that to young people who might need very support. And absolutely on this self-esteem, people always ask me, oh, I had OVW. Officer OVW asked me like, Tracy, what is the thing? What do they need the most? Someone who cares and someone to help them understand who they are. And they asked, the OVW also asked me, do you think you're helping them with that? I said, no, I actually believe if I had the bandwidth or the expertise for a little bit younger, I would go younger than 13 to 17, because by the time they get to me, those things are already shattered. It's actually too late by the time they make it to the institute. Can we help in repairing those things or helping to further strengthen those things? But a lot of those things are really, really, really broken by the time. So it's got to be some consistent building and autonomy way earlier than 13. By middle school, hell, and you also got to think about it. We also have to remove ourselves, be like, you really think it's broken by then? Hell yeah, I do. Middle school was hard for me, but hell, it's the first layer of hell according to young people today. I don't think I can make it through middle school right now, 42 years old. I don't think I got the chops to make it through middle school. So, other thoughts? That's around the way, but yeah. Other thoughts?
Can I just say something?
Mm-hmm.
I volunteer at a women's center in Danbury, Connecticut. And I have to give kudos to the women's center because our education program, we actually have an education department, if you will, and they go into our schools and they go into the preschools and they go into the elementary schools in 11 communities in the Danbury area. And, it's just with that self-esteem and that getting to know who you are. If we could if we continue to try to get to our kids at a younger age, it's going to give them a little bit more strength to deal with those people that are in middle school and high school and all of those stressors, that come on to these young kids. It's so freaking sad, but it's important. It's just, we got to keep trying. That's all.
And Sharon, thank you for lifting up, because I think sometimes as adult, we forget young people do got stress. It ain't our stress, right? Or how we would like, oh, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. Oh yeah, they do. They do.
Absolutely.
And we have to think about outside of school. Like, so, our recruitment for YI, we have never gone through schools. And I think that also was a reason why we didn't get money in the since with the beginning of YI back in like 2011 and on the 12, because we didn't go through schools. And people are like, well, why not? I want the kid who might not know their guidance counselor, and the guidance counselor might not know them, right? You know what I'm saying? We know how these things shake up within a school system. We actually need to talk to the kid who would never be referred or extended an opportunity to go on a college campus, right? So we have to hold all those things in context. And so we've tried a lot of things at YI. We have done some spaces where we train parents and kids at the same time. That was really valuable for parents and kids, because and we've also had a really firm boundary on adults want to go into those spaces with young people to hear what they have to say.
Mhm.
No, we're not doing that.
It's
Because
hard.
we're never, and parents are like, you're not gonna let me know. No, I'm not. Like, that's my firm boundary. And I think that's another reason why young people trust me, or trust the project, and parents do too after they get over that, is because those spaces are really safe. And you all know, if you've ever worked with young people, the stuff that comes up in those spaces, you gotta correct it.
Mhm.
Like, I remember one of my first ones. Oh, Miss Tracy. I'm like, oh Lord, what? Can your vagina fall off? Whoa, like, hey, that's your first question out the box. That's how you gonna start the day. Let's take a break, y'all. Like, because, like, no, but you gotta hang in there with them and
Mhm.
not do what I just did, right? Like, I did that in my head, but I couldn't do that in presence with them because I don't want them to think, that was a bad or wrong question. And the fascinating thing about that was she asked that, and I was like, "Oh, okay." I look out to the audience. Everybody's like, "Yeah, can you?" I'm like, "Oh shit, nobody, what?"
Mhm.
Like, everybody was like, "Yes, we waiting on you to answer that because she just asked it, but it will be good to hear. Like, tell me what you think, what you know about them, can they? Like, you know what I'm saying?" So all
Mhm.
those things, yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Ooh, how have they responded to restorative justice, transformational justice ideas and conversations, especially this year? Um, we really have not talked much about that this year, which is interesting because in my real life, adults damn sure want to talk about it right now, but kids are like more in the like, what's the action? What we gonna do? Like, what we gonna do? Like, how can we stop these things, right? um Transformative justice, of course, a lot of their conversations really have been here about school resource officers, out of schools. Some want them in, some want them out, so we've had a lot of conversations around that. And for our advisory council, one thing, of course, with helping them understand budgets, is they understand how we get our money from YI. And so they were like taking a look at the budgets of police departments and be like, well, why is so much money going there? And why can't that money go somewhere else to help somebody with this? Because our peers need, like, our peers, you got to understand, our peers are struggling because their parents don't have jobs. A lot of kids now have jobs, and because North Carolina, most of, well, Wake County, where I live, most of our kids are in this hybrid kind of in-person, out-of-person thing. Most high school students have not been to school. They just started going to school every 2 weeks here.
Mm.
So they have not been in school at all. So you got kids who have like jobs, and they're like, well, kids need this and we need that. And so I think we've talked about it in an indirect way, but it has not been as pronounced as it's been in other spaces at all. Mm-mm. I wish it would have, but no. Like, now coalitions want to talk about restorative justice, and kids like, no, yeah.
Are you going to be in person this year, Tracy?
No,
No.
no, I'm not. They, kids, I believe we'll be back in person 2022.
Yeah.
Kids want us to come back, and I get it. They do, and it's so funny. They're like, Miss Tracy, we're gonna be good. I'm like, remember how you were before. I'm not saying you're not gonna be good. It's not a level to that. It was like, we gonna. I'm like, you're gonna what? We're not like the babies. They like to hug and kiss on each other. I'm like, well, y'all do too. You right. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, no, let's talk about that. We're gonna stay in our dorms. Mm. But can we still have this and still have that? No, we're not gonna be able to do that. So, we're going back to, but what I do think we are gonna be able to do is more hybrid pieces. So we might have a small one thing that I want to do that, I'm trying to figure out what's my one ask. I'm going to ask them to let me do this year. I really don't think they're going to let me do it, whether if it's my one ask or not. I really think that kids and parents should go to camp together. And they like, oh, hell no. Like they are so like, but I really do. I think they should go together. I think communication has been broken or strengthened or is difficult to kind of navigate because we've just been in this difficult kind of space for a long time. Um, But if that doesn't fly, I am going to do some more um, work that's tailored to to having conversations with parents too. We're going to run school supply drives,
Mhm.
do more community service. We're going to do drive-through pieces. The young people, the advisory council is in the process of launching merch. And I am going to pay for the merch, but I am completely could have no interest in running a t-shirt line. Like if y'all want this, y'all got to manage it. And so they're trying to figure all those pieces out. I'm certain they'll have a pop-up shop over the summer. And so we'll probably do small hybrid pieces where it might be under 25 people in space, but a live feed so that other people can watch it and join in. We'll do another round of care packages. This year, and it's really my hope. I think one of the biggest pieces that I do want to do is to hire at least 2 to 3 young people over the summer,
Mm. Cool.
because I bring in college interns, but it'll be interesting and fascinating to have some high school students too. I think that will really solidify some other pieces. Yep.
Tracy, do you get positive feedback from your local community? Do you mind me asking? I mean, do you hear pushback, or does your community want to get involved, or I'm
I don't
just
think I've
curious.
No, I haven't done a good job of that. I think
Well, it's not your fault. Don't even
no,
go there.
yeah, like
Yeah.
but of extending it, like YI is like it's my baby,
Yeah.
the baby got to grow up and you got to make sure it can walk, but like and it's safe and it's
Yeah.
okay and it can move, But I think here's the thing, our community, some people know about it, some people don't know about it. Like
Mm.
we have a brand that is really, really organic. And so when I say that, when we were in physical YI from 2015 all the way into 2019, I could open up registration. Registration has never been open from the 2015 to 2019 for more than 48 hours.
Wow.
1 year was under 24 hours.
Mm.
Um, so it's hard because we also have a body of, you got a lot of returners,
Mhm.
you got a lot of teenagers who have been waiting on the sidelines because they've seen their siblings go and now it's their time to go. Like we got a whole family who has done everything YI has ever done. Like kids have missed birthday parties, changed their birthday parties to show up at YI. So like we have this really viral kind of like brand. And I think that as we turn, over this decade of work, we're really going to have to strengthen that brand with different levels of consistency and community engagement. I think our community knows about us, but of course, those things can be strengthened. And we also have local programs across the state who run their own things as well too, that look a little bit different from our institute because they have those different relationships in their respective communities.
Mm. Mm. Well, don't give up.
Absolutely not. Are there any things I'm going to send you all like videos? I'll pass along videos so you can see actually what our institute has looked like. Links to the mixtape so you all can check it out. Are there any other things, questions before, we wrap up today?
Thank you.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much.
And I would like for us to kind of wrap up this space. Can you tell me one thing you are hopeful for young people? You can drop it in the chat, unmute. Thank you all so much for the love. I appreciate that. Let me know one thing you're hopeful for young people. Joy. Me too.
Mm.
Yep, they can. Inner peace. I do too. Friendships. Thank you, Jesse. Absolutely.
Mm,
Empathy. Yep. Stability. Unconditionally. Yes.
mhm,
Yeah, that we are
mhm.
able to empower them enough to see the number of sexual violence decrease when their kids are their age. Absolutely. Self-love. And I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out this book called Love with Accountability. I don't know if folks have ever seen this before, Digging Up the Roots of Child Sexual Abuse. It is a collection of stories by advocates, and on pages 208 through 212. It is a beautiful piece that is really a love letter to the Institute as well as to my friend and mentor. It's called The Vanguard of Love and Accountability, the Young Advocates Institute, and you and I. And I think that's for me at the end of the day, that's really what YI is about. Like kids have named it YI, but if you pull that back and you know it stands for the Young Advocates Institute, at the end of the day, it really stands for you and I. And that's really why that sense of community and connectedness with other young people is really, really what all of this is about. And I thank you all so much for just like the opportunities to talk about this. It is my baby. It is the thing I think about. It drives me insane. It is expensive. Uh,
Mhm, mhm,
but and it's one of those things, and it's one of those things. I entered into YI not knowing I needed that texture or fabric for my life, and young people have given me that, and I'm a better person and a better human being because of it.
mhm.
Tracy, could you repeat those pages? Because I actually have that book in hand right now. I just got it. And secondly, is there a way to get in touch with you?
Oh,
If
absolutely.
question
208 through 209, 212.
two.
I've been playing those numbers for Pick 3 for about a year. Here is, I'm gonna drop my email address in the chat. If you ever have any questions or want to reach out to me, I have a funny Instagram name. What is it? Oh yes, it is the Ho Oprah. Like the real poor Oprah, right? Without when you can't afford the O and the R, just Poe, different kind of poor.
Thank you
So
so much, Tracy. That was amazing. Thank you for all you do. I'm always like absolutely in awe about the Young Advocate Institute and all you do. And so thank you so much. Thank you everybody for joining us. I'm going to put again the evaluation link in the chat. Please take just a few minutes. It should take you like 2 minutes to fill it out. We will definitely follow up with any resources that Tracy has and send it out to you all. Again, thank you so much, Tracy. Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.